Hello once again, dear viewers. You're watching ERi-TV. Welcome to this week's special edition of Open Mic with our guest for this evening, the Ambassador of the People's Republic of China to Eritrea, His Excellency Mr. Chiu Shui-jun. Mr. Ambassador, sovereign Eritrean territory is under continued occupation, and Eritrea has also been subjected to unjust UN sanctions. What is China's position on the case?
As I have mentioned, in China, we also have territorial disputes with some neighboring countries. Our position is to try to solve these issues on a bilateral basis and also based on international law, historical facts, and through peaceful means. That is our position in dealing with the territorial disputes issues. I think for Eritrea's territorial issue, our position is also similar. We believe that this kind of territorial dispute or occupation issue should be solved based on historical facts and also based on international law, and also be solved through communications and consultations among the parties concerned through peaceful means. Regarding the UN sanctions, China is always opposed to the imposition of sanctions against its member states. It is the same with Eritrea, because we believe that the imposition of sanctions will not help the solution of any problems, and it will also cause problems affecting the lives of ordinary citizens, nationals of a country. So it will not serve the right purpose. So we are opposed to the imposition of sanctions against a sovereign country.
Finally, Mr. Ambassador, what is the state of relations between Eritrea and China, and what plans are there to cement it further?
China and Eritrea established diplomatic relations in 1993, actually right on the date when Eritrea held the grand ceremony for national independence on May the 24th. So we have this relationship for 22 years. 22 years. So after this, despite the changes in the international situation, the bilateral relations between China and Eritrea have been moving steadily and very soundly, healthily. There have been frequent visits of leaders and senior officials between our two countries, and the cooperation in various fields has been deepening on a constant manner. China has become Eritrea's #1 trading partner, and China is also the largest investor in Eritrea, and also the largest contractors for all the projects in Eritrea. The two countries have had a very good cooperation in the field of education, health, and other areas of people-to-people exchanges. So the cooperation and also the results of cooperation between China and Eritrea are fruitful, and this has brought real benefits for the peoples of our two countries. Though China and Eritrea are far away from each other, but we are all developing countries, and we have similar historical backgrounds and experiences, and we hold identical or similar views on national governance, paths of development, and on international and regional affairs. So the relations between our two countries are based on sincerity, friendship, equality, mutual benefit, and common development, and actually it embodies the policies of China towards Africa, which is characterized by sincerity, real result, friendship. I think the two countries have very solid political foundations for the further development of bilateral relations. Of course, for Eritrea, it has a long history, a splendid history and culture. It has natural beauties, and the many ethnic groups and religions live amicably within this beautiful land. So people are leading a happy, peaceful, and alive and life. Of course, Eritrea is very rich in natural resources, in agriculture, in fisheries, in mines. So it has great potential for further development. Of course, for China and Eritrea, we had a very great, fruitful cooperation in the area of industry, mining, agriculture, telecommunications, and infrastructure construction. Eritrea is a country with the agriculture as its main forms of economy, and it is at the initial stage of industrialization. So it has a very strong need for outside capital, equipment, and technologies, while China, through many years of development, has now entered a mature stage of industrialization. China has many advanced equipment technologies and also some capital. So I think for the two countries, for the economy, are highly complementing each other. So there's a great potential for the cooperation, for economic cooperation between our two countries, in industry, in agriculture, in tourism, and in service areas, in many areas. And the Chinese companies have been doing businesses in Eritrea for many years, and they have been very successful. So I think for them, there is a bright future for further enlarging their business operations in Eritrea. Of course, with the development of our relations in different areas, we believe that there will be a bigger development for the two countries in the areas such as culture, education, press, publication, radio, film, and television. So for China, we are willing to work with the Eritrean side to continue to strengthen the friendly relations and cooperation in different areas and continue to promote the common development and to benefit to a larger degree the peoples of our two countries.
Any final words, Mr. Ambassador?
Yes, for me, I have been here for over 8 months, and my colleagues and I myself, as members of the Chinese embassy in Eritrea, our mission is to further to promote the friendly relations and the cooperation between China and Eritrea. In fulfilling our obligations or our duties, we have been accorded with friendliness, with hospitality, and we have been provided with facilitations, a lot of help from both the Eritrean government and Eritrean people. And we are very thankful for that, and we hope to continue to work to that end, to further promote the friendly relations and cooperation between our two countries, and to further deepen the cooperation between the two countries in different areas, in political, economic, cultural, and in people-to-people exchange areas, so as to make our bilateral relations much more broadly based, and also to promote this relationship to new heights, and thus our two peoples could benefit from this kind of a cooperation.
Your Excellency, at present we continue to see the world being subjected to conflicts and perennial crises. Is it due to lack of global leadership, as many would speculate? And what is China's perspective on the matter? And how can global peace be achieved?
Okay. First of all, I believe that all countries in the world are equal members of the international community. So there does not exist the question of which country leading others. So the world affairs should be decided by all the countries in the international community through consultations on an equal footing. That is also the democratization in the international relations. I believe that is the trend of our times. Of course, to maintain peace and stability and to seek common development, it takes all countries to do this together. After the Second World War, gradually, an international order and systems underpinned by the principles and purposes of the United Nations Charter gradually came to fruition. So that has laid the foundation for the development of the world. So I believe that to maintain and to keep that international order and system is very important for keeping world peace. So all countries together, so in the world, should work together, should join hands in promoting peace in the world. We should all strive to establish an equitable and just international political and economic order, and we should maintain that all countries are equal members of the international community. Big or small, weak or strong or weak, rich or poor, they are all equal members of the international community. And the right to development, also the path of development, should be respected. So every country has its own right to choose its own path of development in light of their own national conditions. And also we should establish or formulate a concept of security based on mutual trust, equality, mutual benefit, and coordination. And we should all try to fight against the terrorism and all extremism in the world so as to prevent the disasters from happening. And in terms of economic development, we should try to work hard to achieve balanced development in the world. And we should also try to help the development of the developing countries to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. That will solve the root cause for the instability in the world. And we should also try to respect the different civilizations, because the world is a diversified place. There are so many civilizations, so many ethnic groups, so many languages. They have their own traditions, their unique characteristics. Those characteristics should all be respected. And in terms of international configuration, we should try to strive for a multipolarized world and also to try to build a democratic world in international relations. In my view, by working together, by remitting efforts from all countries in the international community, then we can achieve a better future for all mankind, for our world, and we will see a peaceful and more beautiful future for this world.
Today, breach of international laws and agreements have become the norm, which should not be the case, obviously. And what is China's viewpoint on the matter?
China is a staunch supporter, advocate, and constructor of international laws. And China has participated in many international agreements, international conventions. And we believe that the international order and systems gradually came to fruition since the end of the Second World War, since the founding of the United Nations is very important because this international law and this international order and systems are underpinned by the principles and the purposes of the UN Charter. So China is a staunch supporter of this international law, international order and systems. And on China's part, China has proposed or initiated the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. That is mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, mutual non-aggression, and mutual non-interference in each other's internal affairs, equality, mutual benefit, and peaceful coexistence. So these 5 principles of peaceful coexistence have also become the norms governing international relations. So I think we should all try to construct a world based on international law, based on international agreements. And any unilateral actions, any use of force or threat of use of force, or any imposition of sanctions or threat of imposition of sanctions are not in conformity with the trend of these times and will serve no good. So that kind of things should be abandoned. So we should try to construct a world based on law and order, based on the norms governing international relations, based on justice, peace, and progress.
Also, Your Excellency, there is a territorial dispute in the waters of the Southeast Asia. Can you briefly elaborate on the issue and its resolution?
Yes. The South China Sea islands are Chinese territories, and China has indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea islands and their adjacent sea waters. There has been a history of over 2,000 years when China discovered and named the South China Sea islands. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the War of Victory against the fascist forces. So after the ending of the Second World War, according to the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Proclamation, China recovered its sovereignty over South China Sea islands and resumed the exercise of sovereignty over these islands, and recovered these islands called the Nansha Islands and Xisha Islands, which were illegally occupied by the Japanese militarist troops during the Second World War. Since the 1970s, some countries began to occupy Chinese territories in the South China Sea, and China's legitimate rights were harmed. And China became a victim of this occupation. For China, we always stand for the resolution of these territorial disputes on a bilateral basis with the countries concerned, and also on the basis of historical facts and international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. This is the common international practice, and it is also supported by the United Nations Charter. That is, the countries directly concerned should enter into negotiations to solve their territorial disputes. So that is also China's position. It should be mentioned that certain countries surrounding the South China Sea, say the Philippines, they have started unilaterally to initiate the so-called international arbitration proceedings without informing China in advance, and also without getting China's consent. We find this hard to understand. So this, we can only say that the Philippines has a hidden agenda, and they try to seek confrontation with China and will not lead to any real solution to this territorial dispute. It's not practical and will lead to nowhere. China urges the Filipino side to come back, to return to the right track of entering into bilateral negotiations with China. And I think by sitting down and by conduct serious dialogues, finally a resolution could be found to this territorial dispute. That is our position.
It is being conducted on the occasion of the commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the world's anti-fascist war. So as we continue with our interview, Mr. Ambassador, we thank you for your time. I just would like it if you could briefly explain the significance of the occasion of the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the world's anti-war fascist war during World War II to China, also to the world.
Okay. You know, just 3 days ago, on September the 3rd, in China, we had a commemoration about the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against the Japanese aggression, and also the World Anti-Fascist War. Chinese President Mr. Xi Jinping addressed this commemoration. I think it is very appropriate for me to quote something he has said on that occasion. President Xi said that the Chinese People's War of Resistance against the Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War were a decisive battle between justice and evil, between light and darkness, and between progress and reaction. In that devastating war, the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression started the earliest and lasted the longest. In the defiance of aggression, the unyielding Chinese people fought gallantly and finally won total victory against the Japanese militarist aggressors, thus preserving China's 5,000-year-old civilization and upholding the cause of peace of mankind. The remarkable feat made by the Chinese nation was rare in the history of war. President Xi also said that during the war, with the huge national sacrifice, the Chinese people held ground in the main theater in the east of the World Anti-Fascist War, thus making major contribution to its victory. In their war against Japanese aggression, the Chinese people received extensive support from the international community. The Chinese people will always remember what the people of other countries did for the victory of their war of resistance. So the Chinese people's war of resistance against the Japanese aggression is an important part of the World Anti-Fascist War, and it has made huge and indelible contributions to the eventual defeat of fascist forces worldwide. So the victory of this war of resistance is a victory for justice, for peace, and for progress, and for the people. So this victory, this war, shall forever be remembered by the Chinese nation and by the peoples of all other countries. Actually, during the Second World War in Eritrea, there was a Battle of Karen, and it unveiled the beginning of the victory of the Allied forces against the Nazist forces in the African continent. And of course, after the conclusion of the Second War, the Eritrean people started their long struggle. and especially their long struggle of armed struggle for liberation of this country. So after many years of struggle, finally Eritrea won its liberation and independence. So I think for China and Eritrea, we are both peace-loving countries, and we cherish the independence. So by working together, the two countries could make better efforts for our nation building, for raising the living standards of our two peoples, and also for making contributions to maintaining peace, security, and development in Africa and in the world at large.
We thank you for your time, Mr. Ambassador. Dear viewers, that was the ambassador of the People's Republic of China's ambassador to the state of Eritrea, Mr. Chu Huijun.